right, welcome back. It is the Built by Vitality podcast. I am Steve Pinkerton, sitting next to
Philip Lewis.
And today we're going to talk about Kyle Rittenhouse. We're going to talk a little bit about, I was watching a little bit of the trial, and Philip and I were talking about it. We said, man, let's do a little podcast. We'll do a little, hey, here's our thoughts on it, because we both had just some interesting, we found so many pieces of this intriguing. We figured we might as well talk through it so you can hear our thoughts. And again, we're not attorneys. I don't know a whole lot about the legality of Wisconsin and what those laws are there. So we'll let the professionals handle that.
Yep.
But we'll give some feedback. The first thing, for guys, my wife is somebody that she's been able to avoid the news, and I think that's great because as much as she doesn't know what's going on, she's also not triggered like I get when I watch different news outlets. And, so I think there's a fairly significant group of people that don't know what's going on in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Kyle Rittenhouse, a 17-year-old white male who lives in Indiana,
Right.
And he crossed state lines, met up with some friends, got his hands on an AR-15, went out to the protest when they were protesting in the streets of Wisconsin, in Kenosha, and got involved in a protest that turned into a not so peaceful protest, and burned apparently about $50 million worth of personal property in Kenosha. Yeah. $50 million.
That's a ton.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's a lot
That's
of money.
not a peaceful protest.
No, it might not be too peaceful. But anyway, he ended up shooting 2 people, killing them, and wounding a third person. And he's got quite a few charges against him: underage possession of a weapon, which was dropped. Mm-hmm. That's the first kind of red flag that I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. He's not 18. You have to be 18 to have this weapon. I'm surprised they would drop that. So again, I'm not an attorney, but I found that to be a little interesting that they've dropped that charge. The kid's 17. That seems like a pretty black and white rule. But anyway, the interesting thing about this is it's being televised, like it's live TV.
I seen a thing earlier. It said like I could click on YouTube, said live coverage from inside the courtroom. Click here. There's like 36,000 people currently watching it.
Yeah. And nothing's really going on. There's 36,000 people waiting for the verdict.
Yeah, they're waiting for it. Yeah.
Have you watched a lot of it unfold? Like the prosecution and defense, their closing arguments? Did you watch a lot of their a lot of that live stuff?
Yes. The prosecution, I just don't know what this guy's doing. At some point, it's almost like he's doing it for show a little bit because he knows that so many people are watching this. I just never seen anybody in court whether it's defense, prosecutor, whatever it is, I've never seen nobody able to stand there and hold a weapon. He was holding that AR-15, I believe, and he had his finger on the trigger while he was pointing it around the courtroom. I just don't even. Somebody should have said something, but hey, man, what are you doing?
It's interesting. You talk about the theatrics of it. I love that it's transparent, that we can watch it, that we can sit back and I think people get consumed by it at times where they just get so obsessive over it. Mm-hmm. But I do think that there's not many places where there's not many countries where you can watch the judicial process play out like that. So I think that's interesting. But like you say, you run the risk of
people being, what do they say now, extra.
Yeah.
They're being a little too much.
Yeah. It now they know. You know how many people are watching. Millions of people are watching this. That every sound bite is going to be there, so everyone's trying to, you don't know if people are just, hey, this is the way I really am, or I'm playing a little bit of theater for the millions of people that are watching. And I don't think that, I feel bad a little bit for the judge because he's not a super well-spoken guy. and he's talked himself into a couple of like little weird situations, which, I have a lot of respect for. Judges have so much responsibility,
Yeah.
but now you're putting this guy on national TV, and everyone's talking about it, and I think that puts him in a very difficult situation because he's trying to be an unbiased arbiter of this whole thing, and no matter what he does, he's going to end up making 50% of the people mad.
Yeah. From what I've watched, I think he's a fair guy. I think he is from just what I've seen.
Yeah.
But obviously,
it's hard to tell.
He does get a little. He gets a little mad, then he calms it back down. Then he's really nice.
Yeah.
But I'm sure he's a little high stress right now.
He's probably not used to this type of.
No.
He's not used to these type of things going on. So, I think that's a part of that could be a problem with a part of this transparency piece. But from us seeing the back end of this, it's pretty interesting. I'll give you that. I look at this and I would talk about this from. I think there's a bigger issue than the trial. The trial is obviously it needs to get taken care of. It needs to, there needs to be action one way or the other. I get that. But what we have to look at is, how do we get here? How do we get to the point where you've got a 17-year-old kid running through the streets with an AR-15 trying to protect personal property? That's the part where I wish we could start to talk about and look at and figure out, why is that happening? Because here's the deal. That can't happen.
No.
You can't have kids, and he's a kid.
Yeah.
You can't have teenagers running through the streets with weapons.
What made him think
that was a good idea?
Or even more than that, what made him think that he should be down there to help protect things? So who did the police fail? Did the governor fail? Did the system fail? Or he actually felt like, well, maybe if I go down here, I can help protect some things, or I can do some good. If it was already handled, I don't think he even felt some kind of need to go down there.
Yeah, I think that,
even though it's a bad decision.
One of the polarizing concepts that's taken place and the rhetoric that's taken place over the last year and a half, and people don't believe this, is this whole defund the police nonsense. I truly believe that people don't buy into that. If you do buy into that, we're going to talk about extremes here in a little bit, but nobody with a brain supports the defund the police movement. That we've come out and everyone's talked about how both sides, Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter. They don't believe that. But if when you started to harp on that, then you hamstrung the law enforcement officers to where they couldn't do their job, and they weren't allowed to mitigate some of these issues that were coming up in these protests that turned into riots or whatever. And now these kids or these regular citizens feel like it's their responsibility to protect the property. So it's not a failure, I don't think, of law enforcement, or necessarily I think it's a failure of the system, the government in general, to where they've put people in a position to where they think it's their responsibility to do this because they feel nobody else is going to protect these cities. Yeah. That's the first problem. But then, we have to look at that and say, man, this Rittenhouse kid, I don't know anything about him. I'm watching him on the stand, and I'm watching his demeanor, and it doesn't take, this. I'm a psychology major, barely graduated college. It doesn't take someone that's super smart to realize he doesn't have the mental or emotional capacity to be in the situation he was in. Yeah. All right. Now that I'm not saying it's because he cried up on the stand. No. Yeah. But it's the way that thing went down. Yeah. It just, you don't have.
I don't think anybody that age is going to be able to. Most people, you're just not.
You got to look at this and say, okay.
Well, if he was 25 and he'd been to the range a few times and he had been some classes, he's been in the military, he's something. But he is 17, never been to nothing like that.
Yeah.
Of course, it's not going to go right.
And that's where, let's talk about these. Let's talk about the extremes. And when you find yourself on one end or the other of anything, I think when you find yourself so far to one side, that the fringe is where you're going to find yourself to get in trouble, I think. And this could be with politics. It could be with the media. If you believe every single thing, if I watch one news outlet and I believe everything that they say, and I just boom, you're going to get yourself in trouble. You're going to get yourself down this rabbit hole of you've got to open your brain up and say, okay, cool. Look at the vaccine without making too many people mad at me. I've made it clear that I don't think every single person should be forced to take a vaccine. Do I think the vaccine is helpful to certain demographics? Absolutely. I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm somewhere in the common sense ground of, hey, it's going to be ideal for some people and it might not be ideal for others. And I think as soon as you get to that, the look at the fringe of that argument alone, when you say, oh, every single citizen in the United States needs to be vaccinated, or you take the opposite and say nobody should get vaccinated.
They shouldn't even have that.
You shouldn't even have it.
Yeah.
Now you're on the fringes of that argument, and it's just there's not a lot of logic to either side of that. You got to understand that usually it's somewhere in the middle. It's somewhere in the middle, and this is when I look at the Second Amendment. I am obviously, I spent 8 years in the Marine Corps, so I believe wholeheartedly in the Second Amendment and our right for the people to keep and bear arms. I believe that to my core. However, where I think there's a disconnect is just because you're a U.S. citizen doesn't mean you might have the right to bear arms, but you better accept some of that responsibility and take it upon yourself to educate and train yourself with what comes along with that responsibility. And that's where I've argued a lot, with different people about. I'm not a huge fan of all these different people concealed carrying. I'm just not.
Yeah.
And because I think that a lot of these people become more of a liability than they become an asset. They're not a force multiplier because they're carrying a weapon. They're actually probably going to make a situation worse.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, to your point, how many of these people that have weapons, personal weapons, are going to the range, are doing drills and training and learning how to, clear a malfunction, do magazine changes, whatever, practice proper gun safety. Again, you talk about the the prosecutor waving around an AR-15. I don't care if the magazine's out and the bolt assembly's gone. I don't care.
Yeah.
Who in their right mind? You do that in a Marine training scenario,
It'll take you down.
Oh man, it's game over.
Yeah.
You can forget about it. And
his finger was on the trigger.
And that's the type of training or lack of training that the majority of people have. They just don't understand it. You look at what happened with Alec Baldwin on the set of that Rust movie. I get it. You're making a movie. I got it, but. Again, if you're not actually shooting the scene, why are you pointing a weapon at anybody?
Yeah.
And that might be that might be a bad example because you watch movies and guess what? You're going to have to pretend to shoot people. I get it. But here's the bigger picture is most people, and you can see it when you watch these protests that turn violent and you start to see these weapons being slung around. No one's using any type of safety precaution whatsoever. So now you're putting gasoline in this fire, and it's just going to make things worse. And I think back to all the training that we did before we deployed the first time. the amount of live rounds we fired in training. And I can promise you it was nothing close to what it was actually like when you fired your weapon, when you were deployed, when you actually had to fire your weapon, or the sound that a round makes when it's coming towards you. Because in training, you're not shooting at me, and if you are, it's with a simunition round, like a dummy round.
Or you're at the range, you got your safety glasses on, you got your earplugs in.
Yeah,
it sounds a little different when you shoot without that.
I caution people to take their hearing protection off when they shoot their pistol.
Just try 1 or 2 rounds
for their first round.
You're going to ring a little bit,
and my goodness, it will disorient you because if you're not ready for it.
Yeah.
So there's so many things that people aren't ready for, and now all of a sudden you're going to be put in a situation to where you're going to be forced to make a decision in a split second that's going to determine the next rest of your life and someone else's life. So, I think that when I look at the Second Amendment, I do believe, like I said, I believe in the right to bear arms. However, I just think that there's too many video gamers out there. There's too many people playing Call of Duty that think that because they're really good at a video game, that they now have the training to be able to go out and buy an AR-15 and get a magazine that holds 30 rounds and then go and insert themselves into a scenario where, let me tell you something, when you take an AR-15 to a protest, it is going to be very difficult. If that protest turns violent, it is almost going to be impossible for you to not fire that AR-15.
Yeah, or just stand out in general. They're going to be like, oh, the guy over there with the big rifle.
Yeah.
Like, well, who's that guy?
Because now you're
people that need help from you. People that need help is going to come to you too, or get behind you.
Yep.
Like he's got the gun.
And so you're going to end up either using it or getting it taken from you and using it against you.
Yeah.
And that's a really tough, the fact that there were so many people carrying weapons in that protest, that's a big problem.
Fun fact about North Carolina, I'm not sure about all the other states, but we can check this. So if I'm wrong, I'm sorry. But I believe in North Carolina, out of every person that has a concealed carry permit, there has never been not one incident where they caused a problem or got charged or did something wrong.
Really?
In North Carolina.
That's interesting.
In here, I don't know about other states. I'm sure it's all over the place, but I believe in North Carolina. I don't think that's ever happened.
I would like Agnew, our fact checker, to look into that. I'm not doubting you. That's an interesting.
Because they went through the class, they've shot the ones that actually passed and went to the classes. I think they had something to do with it, but this state, I don't think there's been an issue.
I think everyone, if you're going through a concealed carry, if you have a concealed carry, you've been through a class. But that class, it might have been 4 years ago, 3 years ago.
Yeah, there's no refresher.
There's no that doesn't qualify us. That's like saying I'm gonna think of a dumb analogy, but that's like me saying, okay, hey, I can drive a car, so I can probably go and drive a NASCAR sprint cup
or
car,
or 18-wheeler with my regular license.
An hour, there's a different level that we're trying to play towards when you take that weapon out of a training environment and you put it into an actual environment where you're going to have to use that.
Concealed carry class isn't a riot during class.
And that's there's so much confusion and anxiety and stress in those situations. I look at it in here. You look at what happens when you're under physical and mental stress in a workout. That means nothing. And the people's ability to think clearly, communicate clearly, speak clearly is greatly reduced. Now you're a little touchy. You're a little. You're frustrated. You're borderline. Angry.
I've had people's responses be a sound. Always like, "Hey, you feeling okay?" They go, "Huh."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Okay."
So now you're going to give this person that has this elevated heart rate, their lack of ability to make decisions. Now you're going to give them a tool that can take people's lives. That's tough, But do I think that you should go through that training, go through as much, experience, gain as much experience as you can. Absolutely. And then you can be a force multiplier. And then you can be an asset versus a liability. I think that's when I look at this, I look at it as, man, we've really failed somewhere along the line. We've failed to where we've made it where people that love this country, there's a lot of patriots in this country, a lot. For every one person you hear complaining about, whining about, we're this is terrible here. This is there's 10 other people that are saying, man, this is the greatest country on the planet. And so there's a lot of those people, and
I think those people are just a little more quiet about it usually.
Yeah,
the 10.
And if you start to push people into a corner to where they feel like, hey, it's my responsibility to do my part to keep this safe, which it's not. It's in most cases it's not. That's what we have our law enforcement for. That's what we have, our police officers for. But when they see, and again, maybe they're watching one news station instead of the other, and on both sides of this, okay. If you just watch one, you become a little brainwashed in the other view of this. Yeah. And I work really hard to try and look at things from a bunch of different angles, and very rarely am I going to find myself on one extreme or the other. I honestly can't think of one issue where I'm dead set one side or the other, other than just working out and suffering. I think everybody needs to do that. You know what I mean?
No.
You agree?
I'm in the middle. I'm in the middle on that. Rest is pretty beneficial.
Yeah. I think we were over at Jiu-Jitsu today, and Steve said that what was the analogy he used, that he just wanted to. He was emphasizing some position or transition to where he wanted to make it as literally painful and uncomfortable on someone as humanly possible. And he might be the only one that he's with me on that one.
Yeah, he means that.
He wants people to suffer.
Yeah. He wants them to.
Yeah.
I don't think he wants to.
Well, I would argue that
he likes doing it to other people.
Yeah, and a part of me, I'm not gonna, I won't ask him this, but a part of me thinks that he doesn't mind getting smashed a little bit. And I think that's those type of people. We like to. I've said it 1,000 times. When I get on top and I hear that the air come out of your lungs, there's just something I can't do it without smiling. You. Me. And I hear that like audible. There's something about that just brings me so much enjoyment and happiness. So I don't know. I think that's for another day. But I will tell you this. Side note: if we do ever go stop a protest, I'm bringing Steve with me. Oh, I'm going to leave the AR-15 at home. I just need me Steve.
Putting him right in the front.
Yeah, put him in the front. Yep. Let's just see what happens.
He'll do the old toe stretch where he leans back, comes right back up, and the whole crowd's going back on up.
Yeah, I kind of feel like maybe I'd put him behind, because if I can try something first, and when I screw it up, which I'll have a 99% chance.
Just move. I got it.
Yeah, he can come and he can make sure he saves me. It's kind of like when someone grabs my collar and I'm like, wait a second, give me 8 seconds to think through this.
Use your other hand to grab my collar and go slower. Grab it higher.
Just slow down a second. Yeah. Use your other hand for me, because I can't do it from the right side.
Don't stagger your stance.
We used to finish our Marine Corps martial arts program, and the guys that were like the senior instructors, they would just laugh because we knew just enough that the idiots would go out and get beat up on the weekends because they thought they knew. I always knew I knew nothing, just enough to like start a fight but get crushed. Yeah. That's how I feel at jiu-jitsu. I know just enough to really get beat up, So, but the other thing that we'll switch gears a little bit with this case. Have you ever seen where the defendant draws the jurors that are going to
I've never seen that.
Deliberate the case?
It's like the hopper in CrossFit.
It's crazy.
Where he picks out the movements or whatever. He literally put all the jurors names in this little rusty box. It made the awful noise. This little lady turned. She opens the flap, and he gets to hand pick out the ones.
So what he did was he picked the 6 that would sit out. That's how he did it. There was 18 people, 18 jurors that listened to the whole.
6 that are out.
We're standby. We're the alternates.
The alternates, in case, were they alternates or the ones he pulled out or the ones that?
No, the ones he pulled out were alternates. 6 of them.
Yeah, I've never seen that.
It's crazy.
It was the craziest thing ever.
Apparently, the judge does that in his. That's what he always does in that courtroom. That's his courtroom. He does. That's how he does it.
He's always done it.
Always done it.
I've never. That must have been. It must be that done that often. Because that box it was in needs some old WD-40 or something. That thing's been there for years.
You know, the part that was frustrating to me is, when you start again. When you're on this extreme side and you see that happening and you're man. Oh, well, wait a second.
That's not fair.
That's not fair. He can, he's picking his own jurors up. Well, first of all, let me explain something. From just a common sense, I'm just a below average IQ guy.
There wasn't no names on them sheets.
Yeah, well, you're telling me that this kid who's been on trial for I don't know how many days memorized 18 people's names, put them with a face, and then in a split second could reach in and see the name and pick who he didn't want. Come on. You're not going to.
The hole was up here. Yeah. He's like, you can't even see this.
It's as random as it gets. Yeah. So it's just, it's that type of stuff that just gets exhausting when you hear the nonsense. And again, the people that, I'm not on here commenting what I think should happen because I'm not. Look, I don't know. I'm just talking about the bigger picture behind it. I think that there is interesting to look at, and I think the transparency piece is very interesting to look at. But these people that are just automatically saying, "Hey, no, there's no way he did anything wrong," or oh, he should be guilty in everything. What's he doing? What a terrible kid. You're taking one side or the other. Yeah. I can see both sides. And if you can't see both sides of this, then, man, you need to really take a step back and look at this because it doesn't, to me, that's just having an unbiased opinion of this, saying, okay, hey, you know what? We don't know this kid. We don't know his intentions. Mm-hmm. We don't know what his upbringing was. I'm making some assumptions. I can see where people are upset, and I can see where I do think he did some things that were not good. You're traveling across a state line, getting an AR-15 that's not yours, and going down. In his mind, I can't read his mind, but maybe he truly was going there to help people. There's a lot of truth to that could be. But then the flip side is to say that he did nothing wrong. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I think that's equally as wild because he did quite a bit wrong. So I think it's just when you look at these things, it just becomes this is what the media is trying to do with everything. They're trying to draw a line in the middle and push one group of people to the one side and one group of people to the other side. And they don't want you thinking for yourself, which we talked about, a couple weeks ago.
They should definitely just look at instead of one side or the other, look and just say, base it off like what the law is. Like right and wrong, obviously he shouldn't have been there. You should stay home. You shouldn't even go there.
But I would argue a little bit with that and say, don't even look at the law because me and you know nothing about what the law is.
Just let them handle it based off the law. Yeah.
Just listen and say, well, what would I have done in that? And you might have said, hey, I would have never done that. Cool. But then think about the other side of this.
There's people that would, like him.
It takes some cojones to go down there into a protest, bring a rifle with you and try and protect property. Now, again, is that some misguided bravery? Probably. I would argue that it is. But again, you've got to look at this from both sides and say, okay, it's not as simple as he's an idiot, he shouldn't have done it, or he's a hero, and we should all be ashamed that we're charging in with anything. Both sides of that are that's kind of ridiculous. It goes back to, that's like taking a one side approach to the vaccine.
Yeah.
That's where you get yourself into some problems. And we just, I get it. You listen to all these idiots on TV, all the media, and man, it can be challenging to take a step back and kind of think for yourself sometimes, and not let someone else decide what your thoughts are on it. So I think it's good when you have someone like you. I've always got you to bounce some ideas off and say, man, here's my thoughts on this. And, we agree most of the time, but there's a lot of things we don't agree on. But when I hear your point of it, I'm like, I can see that, I wouldn't take you with me to a protest,
Because I wouldn't go. I'd be smart and not go.
Well, I wouldn't. I don't know. You
see?
I'd have to.
I'll be at home. Call me if you need me. Yeah. Call me if you need me.
Well, I'll leave.
You just said you would take Steve, not me.
Well, I'd put you first. Then I'd be behind you, and then Steve would be behind me. We'd let you kind of
put the most dangerous up front.
Yeah, and we probably let you get beat up a little bit before we'd step in.
Good.
We'll leave this podcast. We'll close this out with this little tidbit. I heard a little birdie told me that you sleep with your bedroom door locked.
100%.
Locked.
100%.
I would be curious to see who else of our listeners locks their bedroom door, or I'll do one better, or locks the bathroom door in your own home when you're showering.
Yeah. Wait, can I tell the reason? That way, if they don't do that,
maybe they'll start. When you hear the reason for this, you absolutely will not do this. But please share with us.
Comment below if you changed your mind based off this.
If he swayed you to start knocking or locking the door, then
okay. Sleep at night. If you're a good sleeper, you take your supplements, your melatonin, everything. You're deep sleep. You're in your REM sleep.
Can I interrupt you?
Go ahead.
If you're a good sleeper, you wouldn't need melatonin, but continue.
Extra good sleeper.
Okay.
So
continue.
You're asleep, hard asleep, and somebody just wants to break in your home. Okay. If they make it through the front door, back door, side door, whatever you got, maybe you didn't hear that quick enough. Maybe they just snuck on in. If they come in the house, they got to start searching for things they want to take or people.
Okay.
When they come to my room, the door's locked. So they got a couple options. They can move on to the next room, or they can continue at that room. And at this point, I'm up and I'm ready to defend myself. I got my gi on from jiu-jitsu, and I'm ready to go to town with this person.
Will you sleep in your gi on?
Yes.
So you don't have to put it on?
I just got to tie the belt.
Yep.
Or you're taking a shower, you got some music playing, you're having a good time, you're in there just, manscaping, doing your thing.
Do you sing in the shower?
Sometimes.
Okay.
So that's added to it. You can't hear nothing.
Yeah.
So they get past the front door, side door, back door, whatever the barrier is. Then they're in the house, and they're like, well, I got to take out this person before I raid the house. They're in the shower. Let's go get them. I don't know this yet. They're creeping through the house. Bam, they hit the door. It's locked.
Yep.
I hear this. Slide the shower curtain, ready again. I got McGee in the corner, and I'm ready for the attack. So I'm just being proactive. Just my thinking on it. That's like, hey, you know what? Tonight when you go to bed, just open your old windows, leave everything unlocked. You'll be fine. Yeah. Don't even lock your doors. Don't even put them on your house. Yeah. Just leave openings. Like we're in medieval times. Medieval. They even had gates and stuff. They had drawbridges. Come on.
They had a moat around their house,
I'm just saying.
too. Okay.
They had protection.
So what this is teaching you, if you're listening, Philip is what we like to call in the Marine Corps a soft target. No. It's kind of like an easy, it's a low-hanging fruit. We won't post his address online here, but he'll probably put a deadbolt on his door after this podcast.
I even have an alarm too.
Oh, nice. Is it Roxy?
No, actual
Philip
alarm.
has a 13-pound dog. How much does Roxy weigh?
She's
7?
33.
33 pounds. Yes. 33 years old?
33 pounds.
33 pounds.
She has metal legs that I paid for, so she is ready. Bring it on.
Oh, man. See, this is why we can't make a podcast of 30 minutes, because now I want to talk about this whole ACL reconstruction thing that you paid for. Philip came to me when he first started working here.
Oh, great.
He said, man, I'm in a tough spot. I've got a bunch of loans. I said, what's up? I'll help you. I'll figure it out. We'll get a plan. I said, well, I had to pay for surgery on ACL surgery. I said, oh, well, on what? My dog. We did the first leg, and now I've got to do his second leg.
We didn't. Good news.
Oh, very well.
But it was just one.
So he's basically he was eating peanut butter and jelly and saltine crackers for 4 months because.
And I slept on the ground with Roxy till she healed.
Son of a gun! It would behind a locked door in the bathroom. So yes, this is what I deal with on a daily basis with Philip. So. Guys, we hope you enjoyed this. From the sounds of it, the verdict will be out by the time this podcast drops. So again, it doesn't one way or the other. I don't have a opinion on what I think should happen. I'm just we looked at it from a different perspective, which is where I think everyone should look at it. If you're an attorney, cool, you can take a perspective of do you agree or disagree with it, but otherwise, man, let our judicial system work. Let it, and you can watch it unfold in front of our eyes. That's very fortunate. And if you don't think you're fortunate, go ahead and turn the old TV on to pick up what's happening in Australia, or just search on your World Wide Web rules for citizens of Australians. My goodness.
It's pretty bad.
And then you'll be a little more thankful that we have a transparent judicial system. So,
and when the verdict comes out, whether it's your way or the other way,
good point.
God, just leave it alone.
Yeah.
Don't go out and do nothing crazy. Don't post a 4-page story on Facebook and get people riled up.
Yeah.
Just relax.
Yeah. I mean,
gosh. Relax.
What does the violence do? What does that fix? What does it solve?
Don't hate your neighbor that thinks opposite.
Yeah, if Philip said, "Man, I really wish he would have. I really wish he'd been convicted," and I would have said, "Gosh, I'm really glad he didn't get convicted." That's it. Hey, cool.
Okay, cool.
I get it.
Whatever.
You want to grab some food and we'll sit down and talk about it for 5 minutes? Cool. If not, I'm not mad at Philip because he believes a different way. It helps us to have opposing views. It helps us grow. And I can't stress it enough that, man, you want to surround yourself with people that have opposing views from you. And we are in a society now where we're aligning ourselves with people that only view everything from the same lens we do. And that's a very dangerous place to come from when you have nobody questioning your beliefs and thoughts and ideas. So, guys, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Me and Philip are going to go down, tackle a little workout,
bike.
And we'll bike a little bit today.
Just a little bit.
Yep. So until next time, we've got a couple of great podcasts coming your way. Some really cool guests are on the lineup. So stay tuned for that, and we will catch you next time.